Ever since How to Train Your Dragon was first released in 2010, Toothless immediately won over the audience's hearts with his harmless yet fierce persona. Known as one of the rarest and fastest species of dragon out there, Toothless played a critical role in the film series, as well as the books, as Hiccup's best friend. While we've seen him on screen, Toothless has a whole lot of history in the books, and today we'll explore his origins and anatomy and tell you everything about him. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Toothless? What are his origins and species characteristics? Toothless belonged to a rare species of dragons known as the Night Fury, who were known to be the fastest and most intelligent of them all. In fact, he was the only Night Fury to appear in the franchise until the Outcast tricked Hiccup into traveling to an island full of Night Furies. Hiccup had first discovered Toothless while he was trying to follow in his father's footsteps and kill dragons, but they eventually developed a close bond and became best friends. Typically, Night Furies were small to mid-sized dragons, with an average height of about 10 meters. They were known for their impressive wingspan, which could bear around 48 feet, and they were likened to an axolotl in terms of appearance. Night Furies were also known for their heavy chests, short necks, and few spikes compared to other dragons. Their spikes were shorter and way less sharp than other dragons, and they were lined up on their forehead as well as their backs and tails. In addition to wings that spread about 48 feet, they had a smaller pair of wings at the base of their tails, as well as wing-like fins on the tip of their tails. Since they had small bodies and enormous wings, they could fly faster and higher than other dragon species. They also had powerful legs that played a considerable role in flying around speedily and jumping from one place to another, and their power-to-weight ratio even enabled them to perform vertical takeoffs. Night Furies had smaller claws as compared to other species, but they were sharp enough to help them claw their way up vertical surfaces. They also had mobile ear-like plates, retractable teeth, cat-like eyes, and a strong jaw. Their scales were jet black or navy blue with lighter patterns resembling a manta ray. It's plausible that some Night Furies had other color variations, but this is yet to be confirmed, as we haven't spotted other members of this species besides Toothless. Typically, Night Furies were aggressive creatures who acted violently toward any form of threat, and they were notable for swooping in from above to strike down their victims with an explosive blast. Their attacks were so powerful, they could burn an entire village to the ground in a matter of minutes, and use their plasma blasts to obliterate anything in their path. However, they could also be quite non-threatening under normal circumstances, and they were fast learners with genuine curiosity toward life. For instance, Toothless took quite an interest in drawing and was a fast learner who grasped the idea in a few seconds. Night Furies could also understand human language and display emotions, and they were quite protective of their friends, even if they typically preferred to operate alone. In this way, Toothless often stepped up to defend Hiccup from any incoming threats, even if he sometimes misunderstood whether he was in actual trouble or not. It was quite a challenge to tame Night Furies, and even Hiccup faced some challenges in befriending Toothless at first. Moreover, Toothless was not at his peak when they first met, and Hiccup would have faced a bigger challenge if he had come across a Night Fury capable of using all his skills. How does Toothless use his plasma blast and firepower? As a rare dragon, Toothless has the ability to create several different kinds of fire, but his most used technique involved dive bombing and firing a powerful blast to wipe out catapults. This was considered to be his signature technique, and he once used this blast to defeat a Red Death and send a shockwave through the surface in one singular precise shot. Toothless was also capable of weakening his plasma blast to ricochet them off cliff sides and use them for non-violent purposes, such as knocking people off trees. How fast and agile is Toothless in the air and on land? Toothless was known for his incredible flight speed, and the Book of Dragons by Maggie Testa revealed that Night Furies can fly up to 750 miles per hour. This is faster than the speed of sound itself, and The Art of How to Train Your Dragon further reveals that Toothless is often known as the Ferrari of dragons. While he was quite speedy, Toothless needed Hiccup's help to pull off acrobatic stunts, especially when he was stuck in brutal confrontations. Besides being agile in the air, Toothless was also quite quick on land, and he could jump from trees, boulders, and walls in no time. What makes Toothless' senses so sharp? Toothless had a surprisingly sharp sense of hearing, and he could hear Hiccup calling out to him for help, even when they were far from one another. His sense of hearing also enabled him to use sonar, further allowing him to locate Dragon Island. However, his super adept hearing got him in trouble occasionally, and made it quite easy for his opponents to control him with the call of an alpha dragon, or the death song Siren Call. Another instance from the books revealed that Toothless can use echolocation to navigate places, and he once used this to get himself and Hiccup out of an unknown cave. Hiccup told Toothless Toothless that he was making strange noises that bounced back to them and guided them. He later used this ability to navigate in the dark, find Johan's ship, and even see patterns in the clouds to locate Skrill. Toothless could additionally use night vision to navigate his way out of a dark cave and use his sharp sense of smell to find a deadly natter. However, his sense of smell could sometimes be used against him, such as when he smelled dragon root and got involved in a clash between Stormfly and Hookfang. How does Toothless use his stealth and camouflage? The black scales on Toothless' skin made it quite easy to camouflage himself, and he was also quite adept at moving soundlessly even in pitch darkness. It was nearly impossible for anyone to detect him at night or even in dark spaces, such as the time when he fought against the Red Death or evaded Flightmare. Toothless can also channel lightning in a way that can make him temporarily disappear, in addition to electrocuting anyone in his surroundings. This ability also allowed him to link to his alpha mode, and the ridges between his eyes and nose and inside his mouth started glowing. What is Toothless' relationship with Hiccup? Toothless and Hiccup initially started out on a strange note, as Hiccup contemplated attacking him, but eventually changed his mind. Toothless then developed a tight bond with him that got stronger with time, and the two were essentially best friends who aided each other in their adventures as the leaders of their species respectively. They considered each other brothers and would not hesitate to risk their own lives to save the other. Typically, they had a playful bond and would often tease each other when they did not have bigger threats looming over their heads. In threatening situations, they cared for each other's well-being and kept an eye out for one another. Hiccup helped Toothless regain his sanity when he lost his mind after taking control of Drago's Alpha, while Toothless saved Hiccup's life on multiple occasions. Their friendship underwent many tests, such as the time Toothless killed Hiccup's father while being controlled by the Alpha. While this could have ended their bond, Hiccup realized that Toothless could not be blamed for his actions, and assured him that he did not hold a grudge against him for the same. To express his gratitude, Toothless challenged the Bewilderbeast to protect Hiccup in return, and proved that they could never be separated, even in the toughest situations. What role does Toothless Prosthetic play? Toothless initially had a tail with 2 natural tail fins attached to it, which helped him to steer himself and maintain stability. On the day they met, he lost his left tail fin after Hiccup took him down with his mangler, but he didn't miss it for too long, as Hiccup soon constructed a mechanical fin to replace the missing one. In this way, his prosthetic tail complemented his saddle and helped him regain his stability once again. How durable and strong is Toothless? Even though Toothless has a tiny build, he was extremely strong and capable of holding his ground against larger species of dragons, such as Whispering Death, Hideous Zippleback, and Razor Whip. He can also lug around heavy objects such as boulders with his front legs, and carry humans such as Stoic and Gobber. When Toothless carried Hiccup on his back, he had enough strength to carry Hookfang along with him, throw Meatlug off his back, and even catch Barf and Belch when they stumbled off a cliff. This was a true testament to his durability, and he had also managed to knock down a dragon-proof ballista into the ocean. Toothless' vice-like jaw was capable of exerting great force, and he could fly around for way longer than an average dragon. His durability was no joke, and he could also run for long distances without getting exhausted. While long journeys did tire him at the end of the day, his body tissues were way harder than those of regular dragons, and he could endure a whole lot of damage while fighting against Stoic and other Berk warriors. Even after the triple strike poisoned him, Toothless still had enough strength to fight him and even defeat him. He endured several crossbow bolts and spears piercing through his skin, and he once continued to fly even after being shot with a dragon root arrow. Can Toothless swim and adapt underwater? Among other things, Toothless was quite adept at swimming, and he often saved Hiccup from drowning to death. He was capable of treading on the surface, as well as diving deep within the ocean to grab things. Toothless was especially skilled at sea skimming, a specialized technique that can be likened to flying. In this process, Toothless could dive in and jump out of the water without anyone's help. He once displayed this ability in a comic series, where he managed to make his way back to Berk after almost drowning. What happens when Toothless becomes Alpha? After Toothless was sufficiently enraged by Drago's Bewilderbeast, he turned into an enraged version of himself, and was then able to charge himself. In this mode, he was stronger, could blast limitless fire, and had sharper features and a menacing look. He once challenged Bewilderbeast in this state, and this particular side of Toothless had many names, ranging from Alpha to the Titan Wing stage. In this mode, Toothless was capable of turning out the Alpha even without blindfolding himself, and he eventually became the Alpha by the end of the second animated movie. While some dragons, and especially baby dragons, continued to disregard his dominance, Toothless could still command them to the point where many dragons came all the way to Berk to pay their respects. In this mode, Toothless could also force dragons to obey him, and he eventually accepted his fate as the king of the dragons in the hidden world. Who are Toothless allies and rivals? Toothless allies. While we've already established that Toothless and Hiccup were best friends, he had other allies, such as Stoic the Vast. Admittedly, the two started off on the wrong foot after Stoic viewed him as a threat, but they soon started getting along after Toothless saved Hiccup's life. Unfortunately, their alliance did not end well for Stoic, as Toothless accidentally killed him with a plasma blast and deeply regretted it as soon as he snapped back to his senses. Toothless' initial interactions with Astrid were also quite unfavorable, as he believed that she was being quite aggressive with Hiccup. In fact, Astrid even threatened to tell on them and reveal Toothless' secret, but Hiccup convinced her to ride the dragon with him. She then came around and agreed to keep him a secret, and Toothless then repaid this favor by saving her from the Red Death. Toothless also befriended Hiccup and Astrid's daughter, Zephyr Haddock, even though he was quite confused when he first ran into her. However, he figured that she was their daughter through her scent, and even gave her a big smile and an affectionate look. Eventually, Toothless let her touch him, and even invited her along for a ride under Hiccup's supervision. Initially, Toothless was skeptical of Valka until she revealed that she could communicate with him, as if he were her son. He soon came around and started behaving in a docile manner around her, and they eventually had a great connection. In fact, he even encouraged her to come to Berk so that they could be around each other like family members. Toothless was also on good terms with Gobber and Fishlegs Ingerman, but it took him some time to come around to Snotlout Jorgensen. He initially resented him and even growled at him, but he eventually accepted that he might be helpful and even went on a couple missions with him. Toothless initially expressed his disgust towards Roughnut and Toughnut Thorsten, and was quite hesitant about letting them ride him. However, he allied with them to save Hiccup, even if they were pretty bad at riding him. Regardless, Toothless did rush to their rescue at times, and even saved Toughnut when he tumbled down a cliff. Toothless was also close to Eret, son of Eret, even though he was enraged by him during their first encounter. He even helped Hiccup convince Eret to come over to their side, and was overjoyed when he became a dragon rider. Among other people, Toothless was quite comfortable with Heather, even after she betrayed them, and it didn't take him long to forgive her for her actions. He even let her pet him goodbye, and stepped up to protect her from the Berserker Chief. Similarly, Toothless didn't take long to warm up to Queen Mala, and even offered her a ride, much to her surprise. She would often pet him and scratch his chin, indicating they had quite a close relationship. Toothless enemies. Initially, Toothless considered all human beings to be his enemies, but he eventually came around and accepted some of them as his friends. However, he continued to have enemies, such as Savage and Drago Bloodfist, especially after Savage endangered Hiccup's life. He even growled at him and threatened him into revealing Hiccup's location, even when Savage was being difficult. When Savage made fun of Hiccup and drove Stoic into killing him, Toothless wisely intervened, and helped Stoic realize that they needed him to track Hiccup down. Toothless also harbored a deep hatred for Drago Bloodfist, after he used him to attack Hiccup and accidentally kill Stoic. He could not bring himself to forgive Drago or himself for the incident, and he eventually fought him to the death to avenge Stoic. Toothless had several enemies in the past, including the Red Death, Alvin the Treacherous, and Mildew. While he belonged to the Red Death's flock and lacked the courage to rebel against her at first, he finally worked up the strength to take a stand against her tyranny after he became friends with Hiccup. He also didn't hesitate to threaten Alvin during a battle, but he had to eventually work with him to save Stoic. Similarly, Toothless greatly disliked Mildew, especially after learning he had something against dragons. He even growled at him when Mildew bullied Hiccup for believing that dragons could be trained, but he eventually grew to trust him after he helped them deal with Dagger. On that note, Dagger the Deranged was inarguably one of Toothless' most threatening rivals, as he often threatened to kill him. He eventually started opening up to Dagger after he helped him create a cure for his dragon root arrow injury. Moreover, Dagger even operated on Toothless' tail, and the dragon finally accepted that Dagger was trying to become a better person. He then allowed him to ride on him, and he even convinced Hiccup that Dagger was a trusted man. Toothless might have clashed with these individuals, but his biggest archenemy was a Whispering Death from his past. The two of them seemed to share a dark past and often declared that they would fight each other to the death. Over time, Toothless made new enemies, such as the Screaming Death, also known as the Ground Splitter's son. The two often attacked each other, and Hiccup even helped Toothless lure him into a sea stack and injure his wing. While the Screaming Death forgot all about this incident when they met 3 years later, it didn't take long for them to become rivals again. Toothless had also gotten into a rivalry with the Frozen Skrill, and they often fired contrasting lightning and plasma blasts at each other. Undoubtedly, he had many enemies, and he disliked many dragon hunters, even though he was best friends with Hiccup. One such dragon hunter was Riker Grimborn, and Toothless immediately started hating him after he spotted him around dragon skeletons. He didn't trust him in the slightest and even tried to kill him, but Stoic convinced him to change his mind and let him go. Toothless was also not a fan of Riker's brother, Viggo, especially after the latter tried to sell Toothless at an auction. Surprisingly, the two managed to keep their differences aside and even turn into companions, and Toothless' opinion of him changed when Viggo sacrificed himself himself to save him and Hiccup. After Viggo's death, Krogan stepped up to lead the dragon hunters and kidnapped Hiccup, leaving Toothless with no choice but to fight and defeat him in a singular tail swipe. Toothless was also not particularly fond of Johann, a traitor who often visited Berk and pretended to be allied with the dragon hunters. Over time, Toothless learned that he was actually working against them, and this revelation turned him against Johann, and even drove him to knock him out with a plasma blast. Like many other dragons, Toothless also fell victim to Drago's bewilderbeast's hypnotic powers, which drove him to kill Stoic. He immediately regretted this and even avenged Stoic's death by challenging the beast to a fight and defeating him. However, they eventually set their differences aside after Toothless stepped up as the alpha, and the bewilderbeast then cheered for him and accepted him as his leader. Toothless also had a long-standing rivalry with Grimmel the Grizzly and his countless Death Grippers, who were infamously known for hunting Night Furies. In fact, Grimmel was the reason why most of the Night Furies had gone extinct, and Toothless remained to be his last target. While Grimmel hoped to wipe the species out, Hiccup and the Light Fury intervened at the last moment and killed him before he could slay Toothless. How has Toothless evolved throughout the franchise? Sometime before the events of the first animated movie, Toothless lived deep in the Dragon's Nest on Dragon Island, with others of his kind, where he ended up in a severe clash with a Whispering Death. The conflict left him permanently injured, and Toothless decided it was best for him to remain in hiding, as he was the only surviving Night Fury. He also came up with a strategic way to avoid the Vikings' weaponry, and he once went out of his way to destroy Berk's catapult towers. Hiccup then stepped up to the task of shooting him down from the sky to prove himself, and the crash caused Toothless to lose his left tail fin. It wasn't long before Hiccup discovered an injured Toothless in the forest, and he was all set to cut out his heart and take it back to Stoic to prove himself a dragon hunter. However, Hiccup was quite shocked to see how tiny and frightened this supposedly dangerous dragon was, and he ended up helping him break free from the ropes. While Toothless was surprised at Hiccup's kindness, he attacked him just enough to give him enough time to escape, and Hiccup then realized that not all dragons always went for the kill. Over time, the two of them found each other time and again, and Hiccup once again discovered Toothless when he was trapped in a cove. After Hiccup saved him a second time, Toothless became quite docile with him and even tried to grin at him. The two started to become friends, and Hiccup even created a prosthetic tail fin for him. After many test flights, he even started flying around with Toothless, much to Astrid's anger, and Hiccup's father soon found out about his son's unusual friendship with their enemies. Toothless even ended up in an almost fatal fight with the Red Death, but Hiccup rushed to his rescue, and Toothless paid him back by saving his life when he was about to fall from a great height. This incident changed Astrid and Stoic's minds about Toothless' intentions, and the entire island accepted dragons to be their companions. Over time, Toothless embarked on many adventures, such as putting out a fire at Gobber's home, welcoming a new dragon trainer, and even celebrating Snuggletog with Hiccup. In the television series, we see Toothless putting in the effort to adapt to Berk's society and take a stand in the war with the outcasts. He also practically moves in with Hiccup and attends the Berk Dragon Training Academy, among other things, such as helping the animals around him and gaining their trust. More importantly, he convinced Stoic to start dragon riding and participated in the Thawfest games. But a whole lot of trouble soon followed as he fought against his past rival, a Whispering Death. Eventually, Toothless and Hiccup also embarked on an adventure to look for more Night Furies, and ended up getting trapped. However, they managed to free themselves, and Toothless then seems quite sad about not finding any dragon family, but accepts that there's nothing wrong with being one of a kind. As the Outcast War continued, Toothless worked hard to fight against Alvin and the other outcasts, but he was also in grave danger when Dagger set his eyes on him. He then fought against the Screaming Death, and his fighting skills kept developing, and he got the hang of many new rescue skills and blasting techniques. He also played a big role in the Berserker War, went on a search and rescue mission for traitor Johann, and fought off an adolescent smothering smoke breath. 3 years after this war, Toothless and Hiccup continued their adventures across the world, and stumbled upon the Dragon Eye in a confrontation with Dagger. They eventually presented the Dragon Eye to Stoic, as well as the rest of the Berk Council, who allowed them to continue exploring the world on their own. However, all of this led to a clash with Dagger, who had captured Gustav, and Toothless stepped in to subdue this clash before eventually convincing Hiccup to spare Dagger's life. Over time, Toothless and Hiccup ended up in a clash among the dragon hunters, and allied with Dagger to heal Toothless' dragon root arrow injury. He then allowed Dagger to ride him, and they finally defeated the dragon hunters. However, this war only gave way to the war with the dragon flyers, as well as Drago Bloodvist's army, which notably led Toothless to fall under the Alpha's control. By the end of this story arc, they had saved Berk from destruction at Drago's hands, and all the other dragons then bowed down to Toothless as their new Alpha, while Hiccup assumed the role of the new chief of Berk. The two of them went on an adventure to help the people of Nepenthe, but this time around, title-class dragons accompanied them to show their respect for the new Alpha. At the village, Toothless discovered that a bunch of Forever Wings were trying to wreak havoc, and he managed to calm them down and subdue the attack. Toothless then fought off the Silk Spanners after sealing himself as well as his entourage in a cave on an unmanned island, and the interaction finally assures the local farmers, who once again accept the Silk Spanners on their island. After a roller coaster of a story arc, Toothless once again stumbles upon a white female dragon who turns out to be a Light Fury on his occasional nighttime adventures over the forest. rarest. He then approaches her despite her growling at him, and even firing a plasma blast in his direction. While the Light Fury fearlessly flew away, Toothless was quite lovesick, and he left no stone unturned to find her again. He did encounter her on a couple of occasions, but she always disappeared before he had a chance to woo her. While Toothless was disappointed, he didn't lose hope, and the Light Fury finally approached him and asked him to tag along with her. He followed her to the edge of a hill and almost fell off it while the Light Fury smiled at him and even flirted with him. They perform a mating dance that leaves Toothless quite confused, but Hiccup does his best to direct him from a distance. Amid a lot of confusion, Toothless and the Light Fury both get quite agitated and annoyed at one another, but they eventually get together. She even helps him get a better hold of his powers, and they fly to the hidden world, where they officially become mates in the presence of other dragons. However, Toothless senses that his friends are in danger, and he ends up leaving in a rush, even though he's saddened at the thought of leaving the Light Fury behind. Much to his surprise, she follows him to New Berk, and a fearsome battle ensues as Grimmel uses Death Gripper venom to capture the Light Fury. Toothless then works with Hiccup to save his dragon lover, and also get rid of Grimmel once and for all. As they return to the island, Hiccup realizes that the dragons might never be truly safe in New Berk, and that it's best for Toothless to stay in the hidden world. While they're pretty sad about this, Hiccup and Toothless say their goodbyes, while the other Berkians set the rest of the dragons free. As Toothless and the Light Fury lead the dragons to the hidden world, an epilogue set almost a decade after this incident reveals that Toothless had 3 offspring. He also takes them to Berk to visit Hiccup and Astrid, who had also gotten together and had 2 children of their own. As the story comes to an end, Hiccup's family also decides to visit the dragons at the edge of the hidden world, while he vows that humanity will coexist peacefully with dragons, and that the Berkians will always guard their best-kept secret. Marvelous verdict. And with that, we've explored Toothless' origins as well as key anatomical details across the How to Train Your Dragon books and film series. We have dearly missed his character, but we won't have to wait long, as another live action is all set to release next year. Until then, we hope this video explained his origins and gave you some insights into his key powers, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone!